the work of an Iowa-based organization bailing out Benji kind of helped spark this investigation. Can you tell me about that?
That resolution filed in King County Superior Court requires the company to pay the state $3.75 million with interest.
Bailing out Benji regularly looks through these records of dogs' movement from state to state.
Bailing out Benji
played a key part in unraveling a nationwide puppy scheme.
Bailing out Benji,
an organization that's been working across the country to stop the pipeline of puppy mill breeders.
Bailing out Benji.
I will use my voice because it will come out, and I will keep doing it until there are no more puppy mill dogs.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the newest episode of Bailing Out Benji's podcast, Truth, Lies, and Puppy Mills. I believe we are calling this one A Tale of Two Stephanies.
Yes.
So in last week's episode, we talked a little bit about the conference that we got to attend and some of the stories that we heard, and a couple of Stephanies stood out to us in the conversations that we had.
Yeah.
It was kind of surreal. It was a little weird, but they were very impactful stories, and they really drove home some points that we have been thinking a lot about. So we thought it was worth putting it into an episode and talking about the Stephanies.
Yeah, like it's very rare for you to have glowing examples of why you exist and why you're on the path that you're on. And I kind of felt like our week in Philadelphia was that. It was a lot of reminders of us being on the right path. And even though it feels hard sometimes, we're on the right side of it. And so, yeah, the Stephanies, it wasn't just Stephanies. They were just the two that it was funny that they're both named Stephanie. But we had so many great conversations about the general public buying dogs. And so the first Stephanie, I guess we can talk about, she is from Massachusetts and helps with like Head Start type programs. And she is someone who was actually even scared to tell us that she bought a dog. I think the first night we talked, we bonded over true crime because there's a fun murder case happening in her. I say fun murder case.
Fun murder.
There's a weird trial going on in her town. And the minute we found out that we both cared about that case, that's what we talked about. But day two, we started talking about our work, right? And she asked what we do. And when we started talking about it, she's like, oh, I have a dog, and didn't really give us information about where she got her dog or how long she's had it. And the way our conversation evolved over the week was kind of funny.
Yeah. And I think she said even that first night, like we kind of did introductions and, we said, oh, here's what we do. And then she's like, here's what I do. And then we got off on true crime. And then when we reconnected the next day, or I don't know, it might have been 2 days, but we said something that gave her oh, okay. And she said, when you first told me what you do, I was like, there is no way I can tell these people about my dog. So knowing in hindsight that was her first thought when we said, oh, we work for an organization that, does research into puppy mills and to inhumane breeding. And her thought was, zip it. Do not talk to these people about your dog. And instead we talked about true crime, which was fascinating and great. So then fast forward to a couple of days and the conversation we have that kind of gave her that feeling of relief and let her know that she was in a safe space.
Yeah. So she was like, tell me a little bit more about what you guys do. So you say you work on ending puppy mills. Like, what does that mean? And so we talked a little bit about our research, and then we mentioned how we think it's so important to educate the consumer before you buy. And that's when we saw her body relax, because the narrative out there is if you buy, you're bad. So I don't know this person's circumstance, but as she started speaking to us about the education side, she mentioned going online. Her friend gave her a website. The website was full of breeders who happened to be Amish, and she was scrolling through. She did say a few of them gave her some red flags. And she, had some
as much as she understood red flags, because she had said, I didn't really know. Nobody had really told me what to look for, but she just kind of got bad vibes. Yeah.
And then she ended up meeting one through this website. She drove to visit them. She met the dogs. And now she has a Labradoodle, which I know people are upset about doodles too. But she was able to, without even knowing how to research or what she was supposed to do, she knew enough to at least go visit the breeder and see how the mom was raised. And so we felt like that was a win, but kind of felt like it was a huge loss because she had no idea there were resources out there. Thank goodness she did her research, but just going on a website to look for a puppy is never safe. You don't know who is selling on that website. That's what our online volunteer sleuth team is doing right now. And so just hearing her experience with that and going to the breeder directly and how they made her feel kind of reinstated our belief that like we want people to do their research. If you're able to go visit the breeder or at least talk with them, you're going to know by speaking to someone if they're someone you want to do business with, I feel like.
And what really stood out to me was her initial response to us of, I can't talk to these people. She was expecting to be judged. She was expecting to be shamed. She was expecting to be told all the things she did wrong, right, and that she should have adopted a dog and not gone to a breeder. And she actually put more trust in the breeder, right? She had conversations with the breeder. She visited the breeder. She trusted the breeder more than she trusted the animal welfare groups. And that was an alarm bell of, we have got to change that narrative. We have got to be more accessible to people so that they do feel like they can reach out. She, I would say, is, just in my short time doing this, a more rare success story. Like, I'm so used to hearing the bad stories of, and then I didn't know what I was doing and I didn't know where to go. And I found this breeder online and I got this dog and now they're really sick. And she had a good experience with this breeder, thank goodness. She has a great dog. She was so proud of her dog and had really good things to say. So it worked out really well. Doesn't change the fact that she did not consider reaching out to a group like ours when she was looking to start the process. And that's what we need to work to change.
And that's really hard too, because she had a great experience. She met the breeder. You said a few episodes that you're like, how many other dogs are they hiding on their property, right? So we still could have advised her, right? Or pointed her in the right direction if we knew that that facility actually wasn't behaving well at that, moment in time. But for her, it worked out. And the fact that she did finally feel comfortable sharing the story made us feel better too. But it's back to that. How do we keep reaching people like Stephanie number one? How do we reach her so next time before she buys, she knows how to ask questions and knows what to look for? That could have turned out horrifically for her, like you mentioned. We see that all the time. Sick puppies, dead puppies, scams where puppies didn't exist,
right?
Predatory financing loans, like if it's to deal with an animal, anything can go wrong, right? When it's a living being, anything can go wrong. And so the fact that she felt like she had no one to turn to was really sad. But I'm glad that she knows now and she can share in her community where to go to next time when she wants to buy or they want to buy.
Yeah. Yep. That was refreshing. And just, again, being in conversation, being in connection with each other is what broke down that barrier to get her to understand, like, oh, okay, wait a minute, these people are different than what I had thought, and then to have that conversation. So the connection is the hill I will die upon.
And that's what this whole thing has been about, right? Like, how can we keep talking to people so we all realize we have more in common? And you said it last episode or a few episodes ago, dogs make people good. You're like, what did I say? I see your face. You're like, dogs bring out the good in people. And that is true. Dogs are the great connector. We also see that in politics. Unfortunately, people who aren't always the nicest to humans will vote in favor of bills that are nice to dogs. And sometimes that is the way to break the ice when you're having a conversation. So fast forward to Stephanie number 2. We were exhausted at the airport.
Yes. This conversation was a little more sleep deprived.
Yeah, and I mean, gosh,
still a great conversation.
It was a great conversation, but it was one of those, like, sometimes I wish I didn't wear logoed stuff in public because our flight had been delayed 3 or 4 times at that point. Every flight had been delayed. It was any flight going from the East Coast west because of storms. So there were hundreds of people just sitting. We were all sweating. It was so hot. And I'm sitting there, you're sitting there just tired. And then this woman is like, what's on your shirt? And it sparked a really good conversation and hopefully a friendship. She wants to continue it. But it was, at first, I was like, oh no, someone wants to have a hard conversation and I'm not mentally here. But it turned out well.
It did. It did. Also, to be noted, no food,
No food.
at the airport. So you were at the time, I think, munching on like a
Gardettos.
random bag of Gardettos I had in my backpack because there was no food. So sleep deprived, food deprived, and then here comes Stephanie,
And her
very
glory.
excited.
Very
To
excited.
one of the most curious people I have met, and I loved that energy. Stephanie learned what we do, and it was almost like, these are the people I've been waiting for.
Right.
Had told us a story of the dog that she had lost. So Stephanie was there with her husband and her son. They were on their way to an Alaskan cruise. We hope they made it to Alaska.
We've been thinking about them every day.
We are in suspense. I do hope we can reconnect with Stephanie. Stephanie, if you're watching or listening, please let us know. Did you make it to Alaska? So while we had all this time to sit, we heard the story of the dog,
The $30,000 dog.
the $30,000 dog. And then it kind of meandered into, and we kind of want to get another one, but and then the questions about how to find a dog.
Well, it started
dog.
off a dog.
A dog.
She was from New Jersey. So first Stephanie was Massachusetts. Second Stephanie was New Jersey. And we're not making fun of her accent. It was cute when we were at the airport. She told us we don't have accents. And we were like, yeah, it's because you do. And then she's like, what words? What words do I say sound weird? And so we were laughing about dogs.
We were kind of like, we don't really know. I mean, it's just kind of a tone. Like, I don't know. It's just different. And then as she was talking and she said dogs, and I'm like, there it is. That's it. That's the accent.
But yeah, so I want to backtrack a second. When she was talking about the $30,000 dog, it was a dog she bought. She did no research. She, I believe, just went and met I don't even know if she met the breeder on their property. Lots of genetic issues. Her son was just naming them, and all of the vet bills were just adding up. And that's why they call the dog their $30,000 dog. So the first question she asked us was, hey, I went to snuggle the puppies in this pet store in my town. What do you think about that? Are they okay? And it's never good when I know the name of a pet store off the top of my head. Like,
this is the thing that you and Alexis do that like freaks me out every time. So like the person says the name of the town and Mindy's like, oh yeah, and then says the name of the store. And Stephanie's like, you know the store? Mindy's like, yes, we know the store.
I've seen the name a million times. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, that's like red flag number one. When the person who's based out of Iowa knows the name of your local pet store in New Jersey, red flag number one.
Right. But she was like, so, and I'm going to tell it from her experience. So no judgment from me or Kristen or anyone listening, but her experience was she walked in and she saw every breed. Mm-hmm. She knew that she needed a hypoallergenic dog, or she needs one. And she just got to go snuggle all of these dogs and get to know these different breeds. She said in her experience, the store was not pushy at that time. They did not force her to buy a puppy. She's been to the store like twice now, I think she said, has just been in to kind of see if this is what she wants to do and if they're ready for a puppy. Of course, they're not making a purchase or adoption until after their Alaska trip. So we have some time to talk with her and work with her. But it was just interesting to hear that when she was like, no, I walked in the store and it was clean and there were so many breeds that I could snuggle, which is a selling point, right? Especially when you're not used to seeing all of these different breeds. Where else can you go snuggle?
One-stop shopping.
Right. And so hearing that from her kind of gave us a moment of pause. And it's like, well, how can we keep reaching the public in that respect? But yeah, so she walked out and then kind of decided, well, maybe I'll do some more research. I don't even know. She knew she couldn't buy the dog at that time because of her upcoming trip. But she asked, like, is that store okay? And I was like, well, I can't tell you off the top of my head, who they've purchased from recently that might be problematic. But here are some things to look for. Like, we never suggest a pet store being your first option just because of how predatory those stores can be with the financing, with the cross-country transports, with general puppy care in the store anyway, and enrichment and all of that. But I told her the most important thing too is look back at the breeder. So if the pet store is saying, look at this puppy, it's cute, it's on the consumer to say, okay, but who is that breeder? And I would like to do my own research. Can I have their name and their USDA number or their state number? I'm going to go do my own research. And so for her, that was kind of like, oh yeah, I can ask them for the breeder name.
I think she even said, and I'm okay to ask that, or maybe it was,
Will they
and they'll tell me that. Yeah.
And
so
my response was, they should tell you that. And if they do not tell you that, that's when you also run away, right? Like if the store doesn't want to be forthcoming about that dog's breeder, you don't need to be buying that dog. Everyone has the right to know where their puppy was born if they're choosing to buy a puppy. And
Yeah.
it's that easy, I think, anyway.
And one of the things I think seems to recur with folks that go to the pet stores is that the realization that that dog did not materialize in that pet store. And so you walk into the pet store and it is clean, it's bright, they've got their little enclosures that they're in. The dogs look very well cared for. They're frolicky. They let you snuggle them and play with them. It looks beautiful. And so you assume this is perfect.
It's a licensed business you're in.
This is great. Yeah. Like these dogs are so well taken care of. And it's not occurring to people to think about where was the dog before it got here. So we can talk about, and maybe we will at some point, we can talk about why a puppy living in a store is problematic. But how did the puppy get to the store? Where was the puppy before the store? Where's the puppy's parents right now and its siblings? And what is their, and so I think, and it's no fault of anyone. I think it's just how, when I go to the grocery store and I pull a can off the shelf, I do not think about how that can got there. Right. It's just not in our common mindset. So that seems to be a realization as we talk to some folks who have bought dogs or looked at dogs in pet stores, is that realization that this dog was not born here,
came from somewhere,
right? And so really to do that thinking back, which is kind of then where Stephanie started going with some of her questions, which was so fun to see.
The funniest part, I think, was like we would sit in silence for a little bit. Like you and I would start having our own conversation, and then she'd be like, USDA, USDA. Is it good to have a USDA license? What about a state license? And then it's like, wow, that is a phenomenal question. Let's dive into it. And then she started asking about, is it a red flag if someone has a license? To which we were able to say, I mean, no, you kind of want people to have a license, right? But it's the equivalent of everyone should have a driver's license, but you're not hopping in a car with everyone, right? I'm not trusting everyone to drive me around. So a license doesn't mean safe, right, but at least license means regulated. And so I was like, it shouldn't be something you run away from. However, that makes it a lot easier for you to do your research and look into them to see if they have a problematic history or a dog count that you're not comfortable with, or just general living situations for the dogs. Like there's so many things that someone can look into once they know more about the breeder. Yeah, it was definitely that silence. And then, hey.
Yeah, her wheels were spinning the entire time. So like you said, even after we'd moved on, and then she would come up with something else. And the question she was asking, I was like, dang, like, I've been trying to learn this stuff and like, I'm not even thinking to ask some of these questions. It was remarkable at how tuned in she was to the whole process to even consider like, okay, what about this? Oh, what about that? And it was so insightful. It was, she was a joy to talk to.
Yeah, and for sure. Then like the question I'm sure people are wondering, it's like, what did we advise her to do, right? Like this person who went to a pet store, thought about buying a pet store puppy, hasn't purchased the puppy yet. Our advice was, of course, to research before you buy, but it's better to meet the breeder in person. And so we started talking about different licensing styles and different breeding operations that might be close to her. And the reason we're telling the story isn't because of this Stephanie, right? It's not because we care specifically where she gets her next dog. It's the fact that she raised so many issues in this conversation that our sector doesn't address. So what happens if we've told her, do not go to a pet store? She's got that message in her brain. She's not going to do it. Adopt, don't shop. She's not going to go to that pet store now. So what is her next option? She was like, well, I can go online and I can drive up to 3 hours. That's it. Like what are we supposed to do? What is she supposed to do? What guardrails are in place to educate her on what a humane breeder looks like? What questions should you be asking? And we talked a lot about genetic tests and how important it is that if the breeder is doing the right thing for the parent dog, you won't wind up with a $30,000 puppy. And so you really need to do your research. And something else she said that just popped into my head, we were talking about the inflation, the price gouging that happens with puppies in the stores. And she admitted, and when I had said like, well, some of these breeders are only getting paid like $500 per puppy, and then the store sell them for $5,000. She said that at her store, they were around like $2,000 a piece or something. I don't remember the exact number. And she was like, I don't mind paying the store a little bit for the work that they did to get this puppy here. And I had never heard that perspective before. Like for me, I'm like, they're overcharging you. How dare they? And she's like, well, they should make a little bit because they did the work of bringing the puppy to me. And this is a general person from the public who is saying this to us, and we're hearing it basically for the first time, right? And reacting in real time to, wow, this is just what people think. We haven't heard this before.
And when we're not having conversations with those people, either because we refuse to stray from Adopt Don't Shop and refuse to even have a conversation with somebody who wants to buy from a breeder, or because those people do not feel comfortable talking to us, how are we going to hear those things? Which, kind of like we talked about before, when we're all just talking to each other about the problem, nobody's talking to the people who are suffering from the problem.
It's something we've always kind of like known that's outside of our area of research a little bit. Bailing out Benji is so small, and I keep saying that. When I point out things that like I didn't know or things we couldn't do, it's because of limitations. It's not because we didn't want to, right? And so even like researching online puppy mills, that's something new to us now because we finally got enough volunteers to help with this massive project, right? So the CVIs we get, we've always been able to monitor private sales of CVIs, and we've seen the influx of private sales of puppies going from breeder straight to the person, whether it's an online sale or whatever. We've seen this growing problem, but we only focus on one way that puppy mills and breeders sell, and that's lost on the public. Like you mentioned last episode, not everybody's a data nerd. No. And if you throw too much out there, they're going to glaze over a little bit, right? They're not going to be able to focus on the issue. They need to know exactly two things. How can I buy a dog? And how can I get that dog safely to my home, right? How can I not support a puppy mill? And how can I get the dog to me? And so when we have people who aren't near breeding facilities, how are we telling them, well, go meet the mom? Not everyone can fly to Iowa, right? Or Indiana or whatever state they want to buy from. Not everyone has the resources to go buy. So what are we supposed to tell them? I don't have the right answers right now, but the answer has always been, well, go visit. And if you can't visit, don't buy. We are leaving out millions of families who are never going to go visit a breeder. To whether or not we agree with that, right? I wish everyone would. But what are they supposed to do? And what are we supposed to do to at least stop the harm that they could do by purchasing from a puppy mill?
Yeah, for sure. And I think, we've always been a research-heavy organization. And so it is a little bit of a shift to, I think, and I don't know, you would know this better than I would, but I think in the past we've seen our research as a way to change the industry. We want to change the narrative around this breeding practice. And now I think maybe the shift is we need to take what we have learned with our research and craft that into a story to help consumers. And I think we're seeing breeders as well. I mean, we're seeing both of these groups who have kind of been villainized by the animal welfare world, whether it's people wanting to buy or the breeders themselves, and shifting that perspective to these aren't our enemies, and they're asking questions, increasingly asking how to do a better job and just feeling helpless. And because I think that this industry has done a bit of a disservice to making them the villains.
Right. Well, I will say, devil's advocate, they've not done a good job of making themselves not the villain, because when you stand in line to protect the line, like all of the breeders behind us are good, no matter what.
Oh, sure.
So if you're protecting the puppy mills, your reputation is going to be puppy mill, unfortunately, because that's how the world works, right? So now we're seeing a little bit of conversation where they're trying to, separate themselves from what a puppy mill is and what the public thinks. But it takes all of us. We have to change our narrative a little bit in order to reflect just honesty and integrity in this work. And they have to really start fighting. I don't want to say fighting each other, but fighting back against the bad practices they see. Because if you know the guy down the road is selling to the same broker you are or the same pet store you are, and they're not doing it the best way, what can their industry do to also be solving that problem? Because we can only do so much from the outside.
Yeah, and we talked last week about the smaller voices in the animal welfare world starting to feel a little more confidence in standing up and saying, no, we see a different way to do this. We see a different way to move forward. It feels scary to step out and say that, but now we realize there's others and there's safety in numbers, and we can start being a little more bold about it. And it feels like maybe that's happening with breeders as well, where before it's been like, I don't approve what that guy's doing, but we have to stick together because there's safety in numbers. And now the more and more that have that confidence to pull away and try to change, then they can also see that courage to kind of separate themselves from the bad players.
It's like the radicals on both sides are really the noisiest, and there are a world of people in the middle. Sometimes the agendas on either side are set by people that are so high up, so far away from the ground, they don't really know what's happening. So to your point earlier, education is going to fix this. Educating the public on how to buy humanely and educating breeders on what to do to make their programs humane. It's only going to help people and animals, truly.
Yeah, I really believe that, and help take pressure off of the shelters. One thing we talked about at this conference was the importance of training and behavioral training for both breeders and consumers. How do we make that more accessible to people to make sure that these animals are not being a burden on the families that get them, so that they don't end up in shelters or being rehomed? So I really think so much is consumer driven, and it's definitely a path worth exploring. But yeah, I really believe that's where the change is going to come in this whole situation.
Well, and we're also kind of course, we have no data on this, right? It's just kind of what we think based on what we have in front of us. But if these breeders are doing a better job, we're going to see two things happen. We are going to see, since they're genetically testing the dogs that are in their program and the puppies that are going out are healthier, we're going to see healthier dogs in the public space anyway. So we're going to see fewer genetic health issues, which means families aren't going to have that financial burden. So they're less likely to dump the dog at the shelter or the rescue, right? Because they don't have that burden. And then we're also going to see the breeders who are taking ownership of their program surrendering fewer to shelters and rescues. So our work is way upstream, but just by providing these educational concepts to these different sectors that we've never had access to before, I think it will also help with pet overpopulation in the future. That was part of the fulfilling, right? The fulfilling nature of our trip. And you were going to talk about, you mentioned Christine's organization last episode.
Yeah. Last episode I mentioned the organization, the person I talked to who runs an organization out of, I think it's New York City, which is focused on helping the houseless population there with pets be able to keep their pets. And she's another one that I was talking to. We shared a lift and was talking to about the adopt, don't shop narrative, and how, like, if you really play that forward in your head, like it kind of falls apart. And also, like we have said, it's a personal mantra, right? I adopt, you adopt. We're not telling everyone in the world they need to adopt. We will, if somebody comes and says, I want a dog, we will start with adopt.
Yes.
But we are acknowledging the reality that people are buying from breeders. They just are. We can tell them not to. Doesn't seem to matter. They're still doing it.
We've been saying no for 40 years or however long.
Right.
It didn't work.
And it's, I think, increasing. I don't know. I mean, back in my day, we didn't have, I feel like we did not have all these breeds and like everyone didn't have a purebred dog. We all had mutts. But so having that conversation with Christine, and she was like, I have been doing this work for 10 years and I never even thought of it this way. And so even someone in the animal welfare world was still like, wow, I had never looked at it from that way. And so that was a great conversation. I talked her ear off in the lift, but I have done homeless outreach myself here in our local area. And I know the struggle of homeless people with pets, and shelters don't accept the pets. And sometimes that pet is the only thing that keeps that person going. It is the only creature on this planet they can count on and rely on. And so when I came across that organization, I immediately was like, whoa, this is amazing work. So loved getting to meet Christine. It was truly, I was like fangirling over so many people out there where I was like, oh my gosh, I love the work you're doing. I want to do it all. So I love knowing that people are out there doing it instead and I don't have to, and then I can sleep.
That's the point though, right? we don't have to do it all.
Yes.
There are other people who are doing part of our jobs better or part of this sector better, and it's okay to rely on those people for those.
I feel like that was a lesson that came out of the conference for both of us as well, is that kind of stay in your lane. Like, we might have opinions. We do have opinions on how other things should be done, but that's not ours. That's not ours to do, right? That's theirs to do, and they're doing a great job. And this is ours to do, and we'll do a great job over here. That's from a place of ego, thinking that we're the only ones that know how to do all of this work. And so I think seeing everyone in their lane doing such amazing jobs, and then also recognizing the importance of all of us being connected. So what that person's doing at the rescue, we definitely are connected to that group. Oh, Mindy has a thought. She's
I do
going to the
have a
notebook.
thought.
We took so many notes out there. I took so many notes out there. It was like, oh.
It was the idea of linked fates. One of the speakers said that phrase, and it really made me realize that what is it, like the butterfly effect, right? Every action has a reaction. Like everything you do goes out into the world. And I've always said, I think in Dog by Dog, I say something like it's a ripple effect. You educate one person, and who knows how many other people they'll educate. The same goes for the bad we put into the world, right? And I don't mean bad in the sense that I regret our work at all, but there are some hurtful stereotypes that we've helped propagate. There are some false data, false facts that we've put out there that we shouldn't have. At the time, we thought they were true, and now we know it's not as much. But yeah, it's that linked fate where if I put someone on the list for being a puppy mill, that affects them for the rest of their lives. And if they are doing something, it's going to affect my work for the rest of my life. So it was that linked fate was very eye-opening, I think, to remind us all how connected we are, especially when we're trying to influence other people's businesses and other people's purchases. So the Stephanies, we're linked forever. In some weird way, they're always going to remember bailing out Benji.
Yeah, and it's a really good reminder to be very intentional with what we say and with what we do, knowing that this really does affect real people, real animals. So we try to be very careful to not just throw around facts, and stories that aren't authentic, because we do need to understand that this isn't just taglines. It's not just slogans. Because we are an organization who is committed to changing, we are committed to being better once we know better. And we don't ever want to be in the same place 10 years from now, excuse me, that we were 10 years ago. Because of that, we will have bad ripples that are in our past. Like 10 years from now, we'll be looking back at right now and being like, ooh, we missed the target a little bit on that one. That's the nature of what we do. The alternative is to hold fast to those bad ripples and die on that hill. And we're not going to do that. Once we know something is, nope, that's not the path we want to go down, we are going to divert. And we have the ability to do that. We have the flexibility to do that. We have the talent to do that. So kind of like you said, we don't regret the work that we did. I mean, it's kind of a no apologies. I mean,
it got us here.
But
you can't regret things when it put you on a path, right? And it got you to this moment. You learn from your mistakes just as much as you learn from your successes. I just don't think our sector is great at saying, hey, I was wrong. Here's how I'm going to do better. Everyone, it's the accountability, I think, that's lacking on both sides of this. But how much better would our world be if we could all just say, hey, I was wrong. I handled that wrong. I'm going to do it better next time. And then to try to go forward.
Yeah, with grace.
Right.
Yeah.
But we just haven't shown that to each other yet. And so on that note, something happened on social media. You and I haven't talked about this, but it was Saturday. I was driving home from your place. So I'm 32 hours away. Still
post-travel.
Exactly. Post-travel.
I was probably tucked in bed by the time you got home.
Yeah. So I get a message on Facebook, and it's from someone in the rescue community. And they were like, you have to check my Facebook status. A horrible 100 breeder is commenting. And so my stomach dropped a little bit because I hate that phrase anyway. Like, there's no chance for redemption. That's just not my favorite phrase. But anyway, I went to look, and the rescue person had posted a screenshot of that breeder on the list. And the breeder had violations, both state and federal, in the same amount of time. They weren't great violations. Like we had put them in our quarterly report last year. But in the post, this person said, hey, I don't know anyone here. I don't know anyone commenting. The rescue's in her community, so it somehow found its way to her page. And she's like, I just wanted to let you know, my husband died and my mom died within 2 months of each other. I was struggling and I couldn't stay on top of my employees. I should have, but I wasn't holding it together. And I read that and I was like, I was so sad. I'm like sad now talking about it because the reaction, people were like, well, why aren't your inspection reports reflecting that you did better now? And it's like they still met her with like, how dare you treat dogs that way? When like my husband is my world. And if he were to die, people would be checking on, like, truly, how can you keep everything going when the love of your life passed away, when your mom passed away? And the fact that like people that I've known for a very long time couldn't show an ounce of empathy for someone who was like, I acknowledge that was a bad report, but this is what happened. It just made me realize like how broken all of this is. And then I felt so much guilt because I've done that. Personally, I have put so much of this like animosity and hatred out there, and it's not fair. There are breeders who are historically bad, right? They have a lot of violations and they don't want to get better. But how can we explain the humanity of all of this when people at the root of it just don't like breeding? And if you don't like breeding, that's one thing, but you still have to treat people with respect and like they're humans.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And I mean, she's a business owner and she's in charge of a business that involves living animals. So obviously there's a responsibility there to make it, to keep it up and to
Absolutely.
take care of those animals. And she's owning how much courage to hop onto this thread and comment. That took a lot of courage and a lot of humility on her part to say yes. Who I think it actually was at the conference or in recent history where I heard somebody say, how would you like to be judged by your worst day? And that was clearly a very bad time for her. And that's what people are judging her entire breeding process on, was that one period of her life. Assuming that, like you said, there's people who have
10 years worth
routine
of history.
bad inspections. So yeah, where are we holding grace for people? And just like we said, being intentional about what you say, recognizing there were real people behind this and nothing happens in a vacuum. And everybody has a story to tell.
What hurt my heart the most was I left a comment, and it was a very nice comment. Of course, we all know my communication style, but it was very much like, hey, you may not like where my conversation starts, but stick with me. And I was talking to the rescue person saying, this breeder is being really honest with you, and I think that you should respect that they're at least sharing that part of the story. I can't say I've been to their facility. I can't say that it's 100% better. But also, when the person was like, well, your USDA and state reports haven't said you've done better, I was like, they don't ever do that, right? Like sometimes the state records will acknowledge this inspection has been fixed or this violation has been fixed. USDA records don't. It'll just be the next one is clean. And this person did have a clean inspection afterwards. And so me trying to explain this to the rescue and just saying, hey, here's some perspective. You don't have to agree with it, but I want to bring some perspective to the conversation. They deleted the whole post. And that's fine, but like, just because there were so many people agreeing with them. Dozens of people jumped into this thread and they were jumping on the breeder and agreeing with the rescue. And the one person that they were like, Mindy, you need to do this. You need to jump in here and you need to comment. I did comment. And then they were like, oh, whole post has to be deleted because whatever. Maybe they learned and they were like, maybe I was going to say,
maybe benefit of the doubt, maybe what you said caused them to pause and say, you know what, this isn't fair and I'm going to take it down. Yeah.
Either way.
So that leads me to a question. So the USDA, when they had this audit, if they find, not audit, that's not what it's called. That's the accountant in me coming out.
They also do audits, which is so confusing, right?
If they do find, especially, egregious violations, whatever, do they ever do a revisit? Or it's literally like, here's everything that's wrong, see you in a year?
No. So if the violations are that bad, there will be a focused inspection. Okay. And then the focused inspection is usually within a few weeks to a few months, and they're addressing specific concerns. Okay. If the breeder had 5 violations, the USDA might only do a focused inspection on 1. Say it was a direct, say it was, dealing with animal care or whatever. they won't do the whole reinspection process, but they'll do a very focused to make sure that that problem has been fixed.
Okay.
And based on what I remember, looking up this person's, the person I'm commenting about, their reports weren't bad enough to warrant the focus. So when that was in, I think August was their violation, by January or February of 2025, when the USDA came back, it was clean. Is that a perfect process? No. Do I trust the USDA's insight on everything? No. But I think there's room for us to acknowledge the human side of all of this. And it's not popular to say.
Right. I know. Yeah. And that's, I mean, just in general, I feel like we're much quicker to attack than we are to hold space. And I always think, like, flip that and put yourself in their shoes. Just for a minute, imagine that's you. And then would you want a little bit of grace? For someone like this, do you know, is she able to request a reinspection? So, like, listen, I had this was a horrible period in my life. There were some deficiencies. That is not like me. I have taken care of it all. Will you come back out? And just to kind of speed up the process, or do they not? It just goes to the regular.
I'm assuming they could. I don't think many breeders call the USDA and say, hey, do you want to come?
Right.
But I am sure they could, and the USDA would probably respect that. But they do also have a lot of people they're inspecting, so I have no idea how fast they could bump that up.
Yeah.
But no, I think even in that respect, though, it would just say clean. It wouldn't be a handwritten note from the inspector saying, this is great. But I will say, as we're reading state inspections, it is really interesting. A lot of the times the inspector will say, this place is clean, this place is exceptional, this place is, and like, I see that an inspector is kind of giving kudos to a facility. And that's typically, I've never seen that note on the federal level. But it's just an interesting thing that sometimes we see, as opposed to just the violations. We do get a little bit of positivity every once in a while. But as we're wrapping up, there was a quote you said because you saw a speaker this week, and it's about being the bridge.
Yes, yeah, be the bridge, not the barrier. That was our own Liz from Iowa, is how she is known online, and I got a chance to hear her for just a few minutes at an unrelated meeting I was at. Took a lot of notes there too. That seems to be what I do. But that is the last thing I wrote down that she said is be a bridge, not a barrier. And that really, that's the reason I wrote it down. And I think it's underlined in my notes that is really what we've been feeling a lot lately in the work that we do, is how can we be a bridge to the buyers, to the breeders to buyers, rescues, shelters, all of the different entities that work in this world. How do we build those bridges?
And so for anyone listening, that's your role in this too, right? Like, be a bridge to the people in your life. If someone you know is looking for a dog, don't shun them, don't shame them, send them our way. You know this issue as well as we do. Help them find someone or avoid places that are red flaggy. But we have to be a bridge in every respect of our lives, or it means nothing, right? Like, if we silo ourselves together forever, like, our work doesn't matter as much because we're not having the effect we all hope that we're having on the world.
Right. That's exactly right. And we've talked about the struggles of being in the nonprofit world last week. We've talked today about the struggles of just being a person trying to find a wonderful canine companion. The moral of the story is we're struggling. Everyone's struggling. Have grace. Be kind. Make the world a better place. That's all we ask.
Leave every room better than it was when you walked in.
There you go.
I have two exciting tidbits to share with you today. One, our Bark After Dark Gala is coming up on September 20th in Des Moines, Iowa, and tickets are on sale now. Head to our website and get yours quick. We're at a new venue this year, so the seats are a little more limited than they have been in years past. We also want to give a shout out to our sponsor, James Jacobson. Thank you so much, James, for being our first sponsor for the gala. If you or anyone else you know is interested in sponsoring our gala, please reach out and we'd be happy to talk with them more. The second thing I want to talk about is, well, really what you want to talk about. We want to get out in the communities and hear what people want to know about puppy mills, about the work we do. So if you have any questions that you've been wondering about, anything that you think other podcast listeners might be wondering, please email us at info@bailingoutbenji.com with your question, and we'll be happy to reach out with you and connect and get all that set up. But keep your eyes peeled for some more of those segments coming up.
Just popping in with a research update. From this podcast, we heard the tale of two Stephanies, and kind of an overarching theme that we were able to hear was that some people don't know what types of resources are out there that could help them buy a puppy. And here at Bailing Out Benji, that's really important to us, to be a resource and help people think Benji before they buy. So we really want to get out there and say that to people like the two Stephanies, we would love to help provide information to you about how to buy a puppy from an ethical breeder. What are maybe the red flags of, if you know what breeder you want to buy from, are there any red flags about them? Because we have this extensive database where we research licensed state and federally licensed breeders, that we can help provide that information to you and tell you, hey, is there anything concerning happening at this facility? Do they have a clean bill of health? We really want to help, we really want to be a resource, and we really want to help you think Benji before you buy.
Well, thank you everyone so much for sitting with us again this week. I love these conversations. I hope people get as much out of them as we do. Even the episode we recorded 3 times, we were like, yes! It was a different conversation every time. Like, we could just record us talking.
It feels like the stakes are low because, like, part of me is like, if nobody even listens, I enjoy having the conversations. I learn a lot from them. But we are getting good feedback from people, and that's wonderful to hear, because I honestly, truly, this episode have forgotten that there is a camera and that we are being recorded, because we do just get to talking. And so to hear that other people are getting good information out of it and enjoying it is wonderful to hear. We did have somebody say we were a good road trip buddy.
Yes.
So if you got a road trip
Kate.
coming up.
That was Kate, right?
That was Kate, yep.
We get so few positive comments. We get so few donations. We can name them.
That's right.
Name them each week. Before this, I got a notification on my phone and someone donated $100, and we were like celebrating because that does not happen. So
like, who's that? Do we know them? Like
do we know their
$100?
names? Oh my God, they're from Iowa. I wonder
Rich
if they
friends.
saw.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. But I think really that is, because we're small, it is very personal to us. So like every donation, every comment, every bit of feedback, it really is personal. And we love to hear it and we love to connect. I love to email people. So anytime like somebody signs up as a recurring donor, I'm like, hi, let's be friends. And I'm reaching out to people who've donated to us for years, and I just love to talk to people and find out how they found us. What their interest is in the work that we do, because people are all over the place. Some people are the research nerds, and some people are the big advocate nerds. And so it's everyone has their own connection in the path that they found to get here. And I just love to hear it. It's fascinating. So
we're all on the journey together. Right?
That's right. We're just a little family organization over here.
Right. Exactly. And even our volunteers, everybody, it's just, we're so close knit and
big happy family.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you everyone so much for tuning in again this week. Like, rate, review, subscribe, all those things I'm supposed to say. I don't know exactly all of them.
Click that donate button.
Click the donate button. We'll have some links, some reference links in our show notes. And thank you for sitting with us. We'll see you again next week.